You've been anticipating this day for weeks now, ever since you received a letter informing you that you were chosen out of many people with magical potential to enter an apprenticeship with a great sorcerer. Though at first you thought it to be someone's idea of a joke, soon after the letter arrived, delivered by a raven no less, strange things began to happen all around you. Flowers began to open into full bloom as you walked by. Your morning coffee would inexplicably turn to juice. Animals, from street pigeons to neighborhood dogs, would give you knowing glances, and even in one instance, a rather obvious wink. Along with sparse details about the apprenticeship, the letter included a long list of supplies essential to your education. Just as you were beginning to fret over where to find such arcane materials, you read to the bottom, where the writer provided directions to a hidden commercial corridor right in the heart of London. You pulled out a map of the city to compare to the directions, which seemed to point toward an alley in Covent Garden. At this, you scoffed, prepared once more to dismiss the entire thing as a joke. But then, before your eyes, the map began to shift. Where before Floral Street met the winding Rose Street, now a tiny alley seemed to draw itself onto the map, squeezing the businesses and side streets out of the way to make room. Squinting, hardly believing your eyes, you watched the map reveal a scribble of writing on this new edition: Surrey Alley. You pored over the letter again and again on the train journey to London this morning, as though concerned its contents might change or evaporate if you looked away for a moment. Even now, you check the breast pocket of your coat to ensure it's still there, and you breathe a sigh of relief to feel the thick parchment and wax seal. In the days since the letter and the strange redrawing of the map, you've held on to these secrets like a little flame, a calling to transcend your ordinary existence and enter a world of adventure, a world you always suspected was there waiting for you. Now, as you exit the Covent Garden tube station, rolling your heavy suitcases behind you, that little flame burns with anticipation. It's hardly 100 meters from the tube to the newly revealed point on the map, Surrey Alley. Around you, families go about their shopping. Tourists gawk at the street performers. Young people home from university laugh and clink glasses from their outdoor tables at a trendy pub. You turn up Rose Street and take the first left, immediately noticing the laughter and cheers for the street performers become muffled and quiet, as if a curtain has fallen between you and the rest of London. Your heart flutters as you glance around for the landmark that will determine whether your adventure is indeed to begin. Just as you are about to lose hope, your eyes land on a faded hanging sign outside a Georgian building. The letters on the wooden sign are, at first, too worn to read, but as you fix your gaze upon them, they start to darken and fill themselves in until you can clearly make out "The Witch's Brew" in Gothic lettering. You let out an alleviated sigh. Glancing left and right and realizing that no one else is around, you head for the entrance to the Witch's Brew. There are a handful of steps up to the door, and you huff and puff as you lift your heavy bags. A moment later, however, you feel their weight ease. To your surprise, both bags hover a few inches off the ground. They release themselves from your grip and float upward toward the door. You now notice that the door has swung open, and an outstretched hand holds an elegantly carved stick of wood, which seems to be guiding the suitcases. "Allow me," says a friendly voice as the possessor of the hand steps into view. He's a rather eccentrically dressed bellboy with a characteristic hat and floor-length purple robes. You have to tell yourself to stop gaping. He gestures to invite you in and motions toward a check-in desk, assuring you that your belongings will be taken care of. From the outside, the building looked long abandoned, but upon entry, you take in the sight of a charming, if peculiar, and well cared for bed and breakfast. Certainly it shows signs of age, but there's a loved and lived-in quality of the place that immediately makes you feel at home. A fire roars in the grand fireplace, and seated beside it in pinstriped armchairs are a man and woman, evidently locked in an intellectual debate. You pick up a tone of friendly rivalry between them, but you cannot identify some of the strange words that pepper the disagreement. They may even, if you are not mistaken, be in Latin. In a corner of the lounge, a decrepit old man sits before a chess set, pondering the next move he'll make against himself or an invisible partner. The chandelier in the foyer catches your eye, for it's not only an exquisite piece, but it's lit with candles that float and bob in the air. A kind-looking elderly woman sits behind the check-in desk that the bellboy indicated, engrossed in her reading. Behind her, a vintage key rack holds keys of every shape, size, and color. There must be hundreds of rooms, you think, trying to count the keys in your head. But surely there couldn't be. The Witch's Brew looked on the outside barely the size of a 3-bedroom townhouse. The floor creaks beneath your feet as you approach the reception desk, and the elderly woman looks up from her reading. You notice a newspaper in her hands, and could one of the pictures be moving? She smiles at you and asks for the name on the reservation. Taken aback, you explain that you haven't made a reservation, but that you received a letter 2 weeks ago and were looking for Surrey Alley. The woman nods knowingly and asks again for your name. You say your name, but as you try to explain once more that you have no reservation, she heaves a massive book from beneath the desk, dropping it with a thud, and opens it to a bookmarked page. Muttering to herself, she runs a thin finger down the handwritten columns, then stops, pointing out your name in the reservation logs. 1 night, all booked and paid for. You are speechless, but the woman continues to rummage through the shelves behind her desk. Something was left here for you too, she says, and sets a small leather purse on the counter before you. Curious, you open the purse and look inside. To your surprise, it's filled with thick gold and silver coins. For your supplies, the woman says, anticipating the flood of questions on the tip of your tongue. That money in your wallet's no good here. The wizard what made your reservation left it for you. Studying the coins more closely, you see that they appear to be hand-carved with arcane symbols and runes worn down with age. The old woman shuffles to the key cabinets behind her and scans the racks, humming softly to herself. With an "ah," she locates your key and, pulling a thin piece of dark wood, a wand you now recognize, from a holster at her hip, and giving it a wave, levitates the key down from its hook and into your hand. The thick brass key has a pleasant weight to it. Turning it over in your hands, you see that the head is engraved with a design that resembles feathers. The old woman nods toward the hall and tells you that Ogden, the bellboy, will take your bags up to the room and show you around. You follow Ogden, who still expertly levitates your suitcases down a narrow hallway and up a creaky, carpeted staircase. When you reach the second floor, he waves his wand nonchalantly, and your bags fall to the floor. He indicates the door to your room. You turn the key in the door, stealing a glance down the hallway, which seems to stretch on for miles in each direction. Ogden follows you into the room with your bags, then tips his hat and wishes you a pleasant stay. Rummaging through the leather purse, you pull out one of the silver coins and hold it out to him. You're unsure of the value of the coins and hope the amount is not insulting. But Ogden takes it with immense gratitude. Once he leaves, you take in the first impression of the room. It's of a modest size, but more than enough space for your short stay. Like the lounge, your chamber has the appearance of once lavish accommodations that, though a little worse for wear, are still entirely endearing. At the heart of the room is a 4-poster bed with crimson damask curtains tied back with gold tassels. The fabric is faded with time, but it's still possible to see the curly Art Nouveau flowers and birds embroidered into the cloth. There's a writing desk bedecked with an ornate bronze lamp in the shape of a peacock. The wide window allows soft morning light to fall delicately into the room. On the wall opposite the bed is a framed painting of a landscape, a rolling Arcadian scene modeled on the pastoral English countryside. Gazing at it with fondness, you realize with delight that a gentle breeze has blown through the painting, causing the grass along the hills to dance. In the background of the painting, a shepherd and his grazing sheep move slowly across the scene. You could spend hours spellbound by the minuscule and hypnotic movement within the painting, but the chime of an antique grandfather clock from the hall reminds you that there is much to do today. You step into the washroom to freshen up after your journey. There's a clawfoot tub with gold trim, and a grand mirror hangs over the basin of the sink. You splash some cool water on your face, then pat dry with a thick, soft towel which smells faintly of lavender. Taking the letter and shopping list with you, you descend the staircase back into the lobby and lounge. Ogden is in the foyer assisting another guest, but another bellboy stands by. You ask for directions to the shopping corridor of Surrey Alley, and he leads you past the reception desk to an atypical alcove. Against the wall is a monumental antique mirror framed with luxurious gold trim. It must be twice your height and more than 2 meters wide. At the very top, you can make out an engraving in the frame, Modo somnium est vita. You wish you had paid more attention in Latin classes at school. The bellboy gestures toward the mirror, and you respond with a quizzical glance. He explains to you that the way to Surrey Alley is straight ahead, through the mirror. You take a deep breath, your mind racing with excitement and images of Alice passing through the looking glass, or Orpheus in the Cocteau film. Could this really be? Are you about to enter another world? You feel as though your life has been leading to this. Even before you received the Raven-born letter, you always felt as though there was another world somewhere, one filled with magic and mystery. There have been many times in your life when you felt close to the entrance to this world, that if you just took the right steps, found the right entrance, turned the right key, you might be able to pass through. And now, standing before the mirror, gazing at your own reflection, you stand upon the threshold of your own wonderland. Will you take a leap of faith? Hesitating no longer, you close your eyes and step forward, bounding into and through the surface of the mirror. For an instant, you feel the uncanny sensation of stepping through cool water and rushing wind as the little hairs on your skin stand on end. Your whole body tingles and your skin tightens, but a moment later, you feel the warmth of bright sun upon you. You open your eyes and squint in the sunlight as your ears let in the sounds of buzzing laughter, conversation, footsteps, shop bells, and a descant of twinkling music hanging somewhere above it all. Blinking as you adjust, you take in the sight of a bustling commercial artery. You twirl around just in time to see the mirror you passed through suspended momentarily inches above the cobbled street dissolve into silvery smoke and vanish. On the other side of the mirror, the alley is alive with people and businesses, and there's no sign of the witch's brew. You hold a hand into the air where the mirror once stood and are amazed to feel the same watery, windy sensation as your hand vanishes. The mirror is still there. An amusing thought crosses your mind as you picture the bellboys and proprietor of the Witch's Brew seeing a disembodied hand appear in their alcoves. You make a mental note of a few nearby landmarks: a greenish lamppost with a lion's head carved into the top and thick paws at the bottom, a charming bookseller with a sign reading Bob and Wheel Books. This is how you'll return to your rooms for the night. A bit overwhelmed at the sights, sounds, and tantalizing smells, a winding current of cinnamon wafts from a nearby cart selling tubular pastries filled with ice cream. You pull the shopping list from your pocket and focus on the first few items. The list starts with a handful of herbs, some of which, like sage and poppy, you recognize, while others, vervain, mugwort, and belladonna, for example, are less familiar and certainly not something easy to find at your neighborhood supermarket. You scan the shops on either side of the street for a promising first stop, and your eyes light upon Florinda Bain's Potions and Apothecary. You fold up the supply list, stick it back into your pocket, and maneuver around the throngs of shoppers toward the entrance. A bell tinkles as you push open the door to Florinda Bain's, and at once you are greeted by the warm, complementary aromas of lavender, sweet orange, and juniper. The cozy shop is a feast for the senses. You take in the sound of bubbling potions, curious what each boiling cauldron holds. Along one of the walls, live flowers of vibrant color burst forth from hanging buckets. Along another, tiny drawers with handwritten labels indicate strange and rare ingredients like eye of newt or powdered unicorn horn. Bunches of dried herbs hang from the ceiling. A customer settles up with the cashier at the back of the store then breezes past you with a friendly nod on her way out, clutching a paper package that leaves the scent of sandalwood in her wake. You approach the cashier, a middle-aged woman with ebony curls draped in silk scarves and crystal jewelry. She smiles warmly, introduces herself as Florinda Bain, the owner and potion maker, and asks what brings you into the shop today. A love potion, perhaps? A sleeping draught for deep rest? You hand over your supply list and ask if she carries the ingredients listed. Recognizing the penmanship, she congratulates you on achieving a coveted apprenticeship with such a renowned sorcerer. With a wave of her wand, she summons a bevy of dried herbs, which float down from the ceiling, a few live flowers from the wall, and a vial of sparkling powder from one of the drawers. She packages the ingredients securely, then adds that she'd like to give you an additional gift. A sample, if you like. Florinda glides across the shop to one of the bubbling cauldrons. She conjures a glass bottle from thin air and ladles a scoop of shiny, purplish potion into it, then pops in a stopper. Adding this to your bag of supplies, she explains that it's a very popular sleeping draught, the original Sweet Dreams potion of her own recipe. It's scented with lavender from the fields of Provence, and it is designed to send you into a deep sleep with comforting, pleasant dreams tailored to the individual. Before you head off on such a prestigious apprenticeship, she insists you should treat yourself to a night of restorative sleep. You pay for the items and thank Florinda for the assistance, then ask if she might recommend shops that carry the other materials on your list. She happily agrees to offer suggestions, and with a feather quill makes notes in the margins of your shopping list, tossing out glowing reviews of the other businesses in Surrey Alley. Taking your smartly wrapped package with you, you bid Florinda farewell and exit the shop. Next on your list is a set of robes. This rather excites you, for in your street clothes, you feel as though you must stick out like a sore thumb amongst the other denizens of Surrey Alley, who all look as though they've stepped out of a production of Macbeth. You make your way up the alley toward Florinda's recommended robe shop, Enchanté. However, you encounter a bottleneck of people crowding the cobbled road. As you inch around the throng, you realize a wide circle has formed around something in the middle of the road, which all the gatherers are watching with delight. You find an opening in the crowd and slip through to see what all the commotion is about. Feeling as though you've walked into a mirror version of the Covent Garden you came through, you realize the crowd has gathered around a street performance. But unlike the living statues, fire eaters, and buskers of the London you know, this is something entirely different. At the center of the circle of gawkers are two people, a man and a woman, dressed and made up in similar fashion to Renaissance clowns or commedia characters. At least they are when you first see them. A moment later, you watch as the man transforms into a full-grown lion, and the woman conjures a hoop from thin air. Exclamations of awe and delight surround you as the lion leaps through gracefully. Next, the lion shrinks and morphs into a yellow canary, which flits around the crowd, singing a sweet song. It lands on the woman's outstretched hand, and she gives the bird a charming kiss. The canary then shifts into a capuchin monkey and climbs onto the woman's shoulder, kissing her on the cheek to shrieks of amusement from the audience. Finally, the monkey climbs down to the ground and transforms back into the clownish man. The performers raise their hands into the air and receive thunderous applause. The crowd disperses as the performers take exaggerated bows, dropping a hat onto the cobblestones before them. Several watchers toss coins or paper bills into the hat. You pull a small silver coin from your bag and drop it into the collection, and the performers give you a silent gesture of thanks. Only a short walk further, you arrive at the garment shop Enchanté. Stepping inside, you find a shop much grander and more spacious than the cozy apothecary. There are several customers undergoing robe fittings before three-sided mirrors. A tape measure, clearly bewitched, ravels and unravels itself, taking measurements of its subjects. A salesperson approaches you and comments on your street clothes, remarking that it's time to get you into a set of custom robes. They walk you around the edge of the shop, where bolts of fabric cascade over the shelves, impeccably placed and organized in an ombre of every color imaginable, and even a few shades you've never seen before. "Anything catch your eye?" asks the salesperson. You drift toward your favorite color and indicate a neutral variation in a thick but breathable fabric. "An excellent choice," the salesperson says. They guide you toward one of the mirrors and ask you to step onto the platform, draping the soft fabric over your shoulders. One of the enchanted measuring tapes snaps into place, taking a measurement of your shoulders, your arm length, your waist, and so on. It even wraps around the circumference of your head, measuring you for a matching hat. This sends light tingles through the back of your head and neck. The salesperson, realizing you've never worn wizard's robes before, describes the various popular cuts and designs, draping and redraping the fabric across your body to show you the impression. Feeling somewhat overwhelmed by the choices, you ask for the most common version. "Of course," says the salesperson, "the druid cut it is." Piling the fabric into a mountainous heap, the salesperson gives you an estimated time to return for your finished robes. This will give you plenty of time to complete your shopping and pick them up on the way back to the Witch's Brew. You pay the deposit, thank the salesperson, and leave enchanté. The next item on your list is extraordinarily vague. It reads, an animal familiar of your choice. Beside the item, Florinda has scribbled the name of another business, The Wild Hunt. You find this shop on a tiny side street just off the main Surrey Alley. Inside the front window, you see a few cages, one containing a flying squirrel, another a beautiful barn owl, and another a still and silent iguana. And you know you've come to the right place. Entering the Wild Hunt, you realize you are the only customer inside. The shopkeeper, a tiny man with thick, round glasses and sharp features that give him a bird-like appearance, greets you enthusiastically. A small owl perches upon his shoulder, rotating its head forward and backward in a circular motion. The resemblance between the shopkeeper and the owl is remarkable. He introduces himself as Arn Hagen and explains that the creatures in his shop are carefully chosen for their magical sensitivity and affinity for humans. Many are collected from his travels around the world, or simply followed him home from the park. You ask how one should go about choosing an animal familiar, and he clarifies that it is not about choosing, but about feeling. An animal familiar, as he explains, is a kindred spirit, a recognition of one's magical potential in another creature's soul. You will not choose your animal familiar, he explains. You will know your animal familiar. A familiar is not a pet, and more than just a companion. They will be guide and guardian to you in your magical practice. They will enhance your magical abilities by contributing their own. And unlike a pet, they will continue to live free, coming and going if they wish, but will always be there when you need them. Arn invites you to walk around the shop, following your instincts, and see if there's an animal who calls to you. So you begin to stroll around the edges of the room. Some animals are caged, like the birds and small rodents, but you notice a large tabby cat grooming itself on the counter, and a bearded dragon crawling slowly over a shelf of merchandise. A tall hare catches your eye, its nose twitching gently as it freezes upon your approach. You are briefly intrigued by a green tree frog that climbs the glass of the window. Meanwhile, Arn collects a few species that might have potential and arranges them before you. He's chosen 3 magnificent animals. First, he presents you with a dark gray cat with a round head and expressive golden eyes. The cat purrs deeply as it winds around your legs, rubbing her sides against you. You reach down to scratch behind her ears, and she lets out a friendly chirp to indicate that she approves. Next, Arn shows you a fire salamander. Its smooth scales are shiny black, with bright yellow spots along its body. Arn places the salamander in your hands. It looks up at you, and what looks like a smile crosses its lips. You feel your heart soften at such an expression. Lastly, Arn presents a caged falcon, a merlin, he explains. The feathers on his back are a slate bluish gray, and his breast is streaked with white and brown feathers. He's about the size of a common pigeon and lacks the fierce expression of his falcon cousins. But despite his size and relative cuteness, you sense that he's a fiery hunter and ferociously loyal companion. You puzzle over the decision, your gaze falling from the cat to the salamander to the merlin, and then to the other animals in and out of cages all around the shop. But then you think of Arn's words, that it's not a choice, but a recognition of a kindred spirit. You take a deep breath in, then close your eyes and exhale, trying to tap into your deepest instinct. And there, like a tiny spark, you feel an inexplicable pull toward one of the creatures. When you open your eyes, you find that you're gazing directly at the animal you were thinking of, and you share a moment of intense and powerful eye contact with it. The creature's gaze becomes soft, as does yours, as you recognize mirrors of yourselves in each other. Arn lets out a little gasp of recognition, then clasps his hands. The owl on his shoulder releases a contented coo. You've found your familiar, a kindred spirit, on your journey into the world of magic. Arn conjures a safe enclosure for the creature and fills a bag with necessary care and feeding supplies. Behind him, an enchanted feather quill scribbles notes onto a piece of paper, taking notes on the care instructions he lists off while helping you shop. You ask Arn if your familiar has a name. He raises his eyebrows and says dreamily, "Don't ask me," then gestures to the animal. You look at your familiar, who locks eyes with you once again. A moment later, as if a clear voice has spoken, the creature's name sounds in your mind. It's a very fitting name. Leaving the wild hunt, you can hardly believe your shopping isn't complete. You are laden with bags, packages, and now an animal enclosure. But there's only one item left. Every witch, wizard, warlock, or sorcerer you've encountered today has had one thing in common. They all carried wands. Checking the margins of your list for Florinda's recommendation, you see she's written a few words. Only one choice. Silver Spell Wand Shop. As you continue down the cobbled streets of Surrey Alley, the afternoon begins to wane to early evening. Some establishments, taverns, inns, and restaurants begin to light their lanterns, which give off a hazy orange glow. There are fewer people on the street than before, and the energy of the alley has become peaceful and pleasant, shaking off the bustle of the afternoon rush. You hope the wand shop will still be open when you arrive. You find Silver Spell Wand Shop a stately corner business, just as a clock somewhere in the alley, or indeed somewhere in the London beyond the Vale, strikes 5 o'clock. You can tell from the faint glow behind frosted windows in the shop that you're not too late. The shop bell jingles as you enter, and you hear an elderly woman's voice call out from somewhere in the back that she'll be with you in a moment. You set down your packages and bags beside the front door and take in the marvel of the wand shop. Compared with the other establishments you've visited, it's immense, and yet there's very little room to walk or maneuver. Winding, narrow pathways are purposefully carved between stack after stack of boxes, shelves, and racks. There's a dark wood counter in the center of the store, behind which lie even more boxes and shelves. The boxes are long, thin, and hand-numbered. Presumably they house individual wands. Lanterns float lazily through the shop, illuminating corners and crannies with even more inventory. You reach for a box stacked beside you and lift the cover to reveal a simply carved wand made of a light-colored wood, perhaps birch. You run a hand across its smooth surface. "Already found one you like?" calls the woman's voice. You look up to see her peeking out from behind a stack of boxes near the counter. You say, "I'm sorry." She waves off the apology and waddles toward you slowly. She's exceedingly small, as though the weight of years has pulled her down toward the earth. Behind her spectacles are deep, kind eyes. "So," she says, "looking for a replacement wand, are you? What happened to your old one?" You inform her that no, this will in fact be your first wand, and that you know very little about magic. You're to be apprenticed to a great sorcerer. When you mention his name, the woman's eyes light up, and she congratulates you on the honor. It will be her pleasure to guide you to your wand. She introduces herself as Agatha Silver and waddles off through one of the narrow pathways. You follow her and watch as she traces a bony finger over a shelf of wand boxes, stopping on one labeled number 314. She slides it carefully out from its stack, opens the box, and presents you with the wand inside. "Older wood," she says, "one of my own designs. At its core, a mermaid's scale." The wand is long, but light in your hand. At its base is carved a delicate pattern that resembles waves of the ocean. She instructs you to try a gentle wave, which you do. Nothing happens. But Agatha assures you not to worry. Some wands are particular and will only conjure magic for their true master. She weaves across the store to find another option. Blackthorn. The core is powdered horn of a minotaur. This wand is denser, darker in color, and shorter in length. It's carved with concentric circles that travel from the base to the end. You wave the wand through the air, and for an instant, the lantern lights dim, and the shop gently quakes. Agatha quickly takes the wand from you, warning that too much uncontrolled power is not to be desired. You try a few more, one containing leprechaun's hair, one carved to resemble the twisted horn of a unicorn. Then, Agatha pulls a green box from the counter, a twinkle in her eyes. This one, she tells you, is very special. All of her wands are, of course, but this, one of her own creations, is carved from a branch of the holy thorn, the twice flowering hawthorn tree at Glastonbury. As she slides the cover from the box, Agatha tells you of how the original tree was planted at Glastonbury by Joseph of Arimathea when, returning home with the Holy Grail, he thrust his hawthorn staff into the earth. The tree was propagated many times, and now the hawthorn that grows in Glastonbury is a descendant of that original. Just as each year a sprig of that tree is sent as a gift to the British monarch, another is sent to Agatha Silver to be fashioned into a wand of extraordinary power. While no magical substance is enclosed in the wand's core, the tree itself is nourished with the everlasting waters and regenerative energies of the Holy Grail. When she places the hawthorn wand into your hand, you can feel right away that there is something different about it. The base is carved with graceful vines and leaves. A kind of warmth builds in your hand as you hold it, and with a swish, you float the bags and packages you set down near the door. Even your familiar makes a sound of approval. Agatha's eyes sparkle, and she congratulates you on finding your wand, and such a unique and powerful one at that. She wraps the box in brown paper and ties it with a cord before handing it to you and asking for your word that you'll take good care of it. By the time you leave Silverspell, thanking Agatha for her guidance, a bluish dusk has settled upon the alley. Only a few shoppers still tread the cobbles with their bags, but you hear laughter and music spilling out of the taverns and pubs, and smell the comforting scents of pies and curries on the evening air. You stop at Enchanté, who are just getting ready to close for the day, but have set aside your new robes and hat. You add the boxes to your already towering heap of items and retrace your steps back to the Witch's Brew. Just as you feel you can go no further, feet aching, bags dragging against the cobblestones, you spot the sign for Bob and Wheel books and sigh with relief. You set down one of your bags to free up a hand, which you reach outward to feel around for the enchanted mirror. Waving your hand fruitlessly through the air, an idea occurs to you. Unwrapping the box from Silver Spell and removing your new wand from its packaging, you concentrate on your objective: to reveal the mirror. Taking a deep breath, you give the wand a wave, and before you, the stately mirror materializes in the street lamp's glow. You stash your wand in a pocket, pick up the bag at your side, give a little wink to your familiar, and step confidently through. Stepping back into the cozy witch's brew gives you a feeling of comfort and accomplishment. You can hear a number of voices from the lounge. Ogden, who is just coming down the main staircase, spots you and hurries to help you with your bags. He takes out his wand and floats all your belongings up the stairs toward your room and assures you everything will be taken care of. He'll even be sure to feed your familiar, for there's dinner ready in the lounge, and you should help yourself while there's anything left. You do help yourself to a plate from the buffet, which is rich with variety, from fresh fruit and homemade pies to cured meats and heaping potatoes. You eat slowly by the fireplace, tuning out the sounds of conversation. You hadn't realized how hungry you were, and after scarfing down everything on your plate, you feel contented and drowsy in the warmth and low light of the room. So you make your way up to your chamber. Opening the door, you see your familiar already asleep by the wide window. You notice that the bed linens have been turned down, and the bed looks oh so inviting. Pulling the wand from your pocket, you magically open your suitcase and call your pajamas over to you. You change into the comfy PJs, and just before heading to bed, you remember the potion Florinda gave you as a gift. You're entirely certain you don't need it after such a tiring day of errands, but you will take Florinda's advice and seek restorative sleep before your apprenticeship begins. You summon the little bottle with your wand and uncork the sweet dreams. The scent of Provençal lavender instantly fills the room, and you carefully drink down the potion, which warms the back of your throat and chest. You climb into bed, turning off the bedside lamp and pulling the covers up to your chin. Your body almost hums with the energy of the day as it adjusts to stillness. The only light is the soft blue spill from the window You consider waving your wand again to close the curtain, but you're so comfortable, so exhausted, you don't even want to move your hand to the side table. And besides, with the little bit of light from the window, you can just make out the painting across from the bed of the Arcadian landscape. It appears to be nighttime in the painting too. A gentle night breeze rustling the trees and grass. You can almost hear the swishing sound of the leaves. Beyond the veil of the Witch's Brew and Surrey Alley, the ordinary world carries on without you. You've taken the first steps into a new world, the one you've always sought to find. Tomorrow, you will begin your training in the ways of magic, and yet you feel the spark of it already in your heart. The leaves and grasses and the paintings sway with a hypnotic motion as you allow your eyes to close. A powerful wand rests at your bedside table. A kindred spirit sleeps in your window. Tomorrow is a beginning. Get some rest tonight. There's fervor in the streets, the melodic ring of people's voices lightly singing their Merry Christmases and Happy Holidayses. Holly and evergreen deck every doorway, red ribbons tied on every lamppost, every window lightly frosted. The scents of bayberry, orange, and spices float on the sweeping breeze, all tangled up with the pealing of bells and laughter. Little noses and cheeks glow rosy in the cold. The air is thick with the chilly anticipation of the long night and morning to come. In all this splendid energy, it can be no other day but Christmas Eve. And there's nowhere you'd rather be on Christmas Eve than right here in the bustling corridor of Surrey Alley, where every shop is a magic shop and witches and wizards come to buy their wares. You savor the feel of the cobblestones beneath your feet, the cold air on your face. You stay close to your best friend Brom so you don't lose each other in the crowds. Though you're on holiday from the School of Sorcery, you both still don your cloaks bearing the school insignia, half out of pride, and half because they're the thickest, warmest cloaks you own. But underneath the cloaks, you wear cable-knit Christmas sweaters, handmade by Brom's mother for each of you. It was a kind gesture for her to include you in that family tradition. You and Brom could be siblings in your matching attire. Now that you're of age, you're excited to venture to Surrey Alley on your own. There's something so gleeful about coming by yourselves with your own gold to spend. a delicious sort of freedom in this wonderland of endless delights. And Surrey Alley does not disappoint at Yuletide. The hidden promenade, tucked away behind London's Covent Garden, behind a magic veil that only those in the know can pass through, is positively alive with joy and cheer. There are carolers on the corners and floating baubles in the sky above the street, as though in search of a Christmas tree to hang themselves on. Snow coats the rooftops of the little crowded shops and cafes like powdered sugar, making them look like frosted gingerbread buildings. Tiny icicles shine like diamonds from awnings and eaves. With so much excitement and such delights round every corner, you feel almost overwhelmed. But Brahm nudges your arm and gestures off to the left, where you spot the famous bookshop, Bob and Wheel Books. Good idea, you say, as the two of you weave through the throngs to the bookshop's entrance. The real mission today is to gather up last-minute Christmas presents for some of your friends and family. Your other best friend, Violet, who's spending the holiday with her parents in Australia, is an avid bookworm. So Bob and Wheel is the perfect place to locate a gift for her. A bell rings on the door as you step inside from the street. Immediately, a rush of warmth falls over you after the blustery cold of the alley. You haven't set foot in this bookshop since your first year at the School of Sorcery, as you've opted to have your school textbooks delivered ever since. But the familiar smell of leather-bound books, vanilla and coffee bring back all sorts of childhood memories. You think of how timid you were the first time you shopped here, how much you've grown in the intervening years. The bookshop, by some enchantment, is larger on the inside than it appears from without. Rather than a narrow red brick building with 2 stories, it's a cavernous space with spiral staircases and magical lifts that go to countless floors, each holding a vast inventory of books on certain subjects. It's busy with customers flipping through pages, carrying stacks of volumes, or watching their Christmas gifts wrap themselves in neat little packages. You and Brahm split up to track down presents for Violet. She has a voracious appetite for books, so the real challenge isn't finding something she'll like, but finding something she hasn't yet read. As Brahm disappears up a stairway toward the section on plant and herb lore, you step on a hovering platform and say clearly, "Magical history." The platform begins to slowly convey you upward, past stacks of books, toward your chosen floor. You watch the customers and shopkeepers grow smaller as you drift up. Clerks follow customers around, scrolls of parchment floating behind them, scribbled upon by quills that move independently. Even years after your initiation into the secret world of magic and sorcery, such a sight still makes you swoon with delight. The lift comes to a halt at the history floor, which is peaceful and quiet compared to the main thoroughfare. You suppose History books aren't most people's idea of a thrilling Christmas gift, but you can understand the appeal. They're a window into the great mysteries, movements of people and ideas across time. You wind your way through the stacks of books, reading the lettering on the spines, biographies of great witches and wizards, monographs on magical empires. The choices are seemingly endless. But as you round a corner, you find a small display table of books with brightly colored binding and covers. It's a whole collection of books by a celebrated magical historian, all reissued with beautiful designs and gold-trimmed pages. You pick one up, open the cover, and feel the spine pleasantly crackle in your hands. It's the exhaustive history of the School of Sorcery, founded centuries ago by Merlin himself. You think of Violet, whose own copy of this book is second-hand, tattered and worn from poring over it again and again. Edges frayed, pages falling out, gold lettering faded on the cover. There's a certain charm about that old book, but you have to imagine she'd appreciate the opportunity to set it upon the shelf and crack open a beautiful new copy. There are full-color illustrations within that move and wink as you flip through. It's a beautiful addition. You tuck it under your arm, feeling light and cheerful as you return to the lift. You wish you could see her face tomorrow morning when she opens the package and sees the beautiful cover and the image of the renowned wizard smiling back at her. You rendezvous with Brahm in the checkout line, which snakes through the bookshelves behind the register. The shop echoes with happy chatter as you slowly inch toward the front of the line. Brahm has selected a book of magical herbs and their uses in healing and medicine. It's full of elegant botanical sketches and even has pages for the reader to fill out with their notes and experiments. At the register, the smiling clerk offers to gift wrap your items and ship them directly to the recipient. You watch as a shining red ribbon ties itself round the book of history, and you scribble a short note for Violet. Then the clerk drops both books into a small cabinet and closes the door. You hear a sound like the tinkling of bells and see a puff of silver smoke rise from the cabinet. And you know the books have been instantly transported to Violet's door. You leave Bob and Wheel books as light as you came in, but with a wave of relief, knowing you've crossed such an important person off your Christmas gift list. The sun is starting to set on Surrey Alley, and lamps are springing to life around you. The dim, late afternoon brings a new surge of cold over you. You shiver as you move down the alley with the flow of the crowd. Brahm's teeth are chattering, and the two of you agree to duck into the first place you can find to procure some hot drinks. As luck would have it, you're only steps from Pepper's Pies and Potions, a cafe that may look shabby from the outside. but makes the most delicious pasties and drinks. You step in off the street, relieved to see it's not mobbed with patrons. The owner, Pepper herself, is behind the bar, slinging drinks for the few customers at tables. You order hand pies to snack on and peruse the menu of winter drinks. There's hot mulled cider, hot chocolate with every flavor imaginable from peppermint to lavender, and Pepper's famous mystery potion. You've never tried the mystery potion before, afraid to go out on a limb when more familiar options are available. But everyone you know who's tried it has described it differently. Pepper claims the drink transforms to please the taste buds of the drinker at the moment it's drunk. Today you're feeling adventurous. You and Brahm both order the mystery potion. When he takes his first sip, Brahm's eyes light up. It tastes like hot buttered rum, with a sprinkling of cinnamon and something like cardamom. Brahm exclaims that he didn't even know he liked cardamom until now. You take a cautious sip of yours, and immediately you feel it warm you from the inside. The taste is hard to describe. It's somehow herbal and sweet, delicate and strongly spiced. It makes your throat tingle and your head feel clear and bright. You struggle to decide what it reminds you of, but your mind fills with childhood memories and broken images of Christmases past. You thank Pepper for the delicious refreshments and breeze back out the door, drinks warming your hands. Your cheeks flush as you meet the cold, but it can't break through the spell of warmth cast by the mystery potions. The lamps burn bright with flickering gas flames, and the lit-up shops lining the alley look like miniature buildings in a Victorian Christmas snow globe. There's another gift you and Brahm need to find on this trip to Surrey Alley, and this one must be especially heartfelt. You're looking for something for Brahm's mother, who has graciously opened her home to you for the past 6 Christmases. She's as dear to you as your own family, a generous woman who makes every room she enters feel like home. So off you traipse down the cobbled alley, inhaling the sugary, spicy fragrances that waft from the doors of cafes. You carry your drinks in takeout cups, feeling the warmth against your own hands and warming you from the inside out with each sip. A quartet of carols trill a sweet song. You catch 1 or 2 lines of lyric, which describe a magical Yule bonfire that burned for the whole month of December, long, long ago. There's a line out the door at the apothecary, a tiny shop that sells cauldrons, potions, and magical ingredients. You spot a friend from school in the line, waiting with a small group of people who must be her family, as they all sport nearly identical button noses and sparkling green eyes. You and Brahm give her a cheerful wave as you pass by. You peek briefly into a shop called Sight and Seer, a dimly lit boutique. that sells crystal balls, scrying glasses, casting runes, oracle decks, and other supplies for the arts of divination and prophecy. The shop smells of sage and incense, and a faint haze seems to float in the air around you as you explore the displays. While the objects certainly pique your interest, you aren't sure anything here will do for Brahm's mother. There's a ginger cat winding its way under table legs, and it chirps merrily as it rubs against your leg. You stoop to give the cat a friendly scratch on the head. Back on the street, Brahm nudges you to go with him into the hat shop, Bettina's best, intrigued by their window display. Behind the glass is a charming tableau featuring mannequins made of snow, modeling increasingly elaborate hats and hair accessories. You give Brahm a smirk, and he insists he's heard his mother lamenting the state of her old hats. This shop must have just the thing to delight her. So you stumble inside out of the cold. As Brahm heads for the classic witches' hats, you marvel at the more extravagant headwear on display. There's a fascinator made of realistic butterflies, flapping their iridescent wings, a headscarf made of black fabric that shimmers like the night sky riddled with stars. Brahm selects a pointed witch's cap in the traditional style, made festive by a decorative sprig of holly. He asks earnestly if you think she'll like it. You reassure him that it's just perfect. But you still aren't sure what to get for her. How do you say, with only a small gift, how thankful you are for a person's hospitality? How lucky you are to be welcomed into the family. Now a flush of blue evening casts its veil over the shopping corridor of Surrey Alley. You're coming to the end of the main drag of shops, but you haven't yet given up hope. After all, there's a little square just ahead where a magical Christmas market has sprung up around the great festive tree. You can see the tree now, a great spruce stretching high into the darkening sky, at least 20 meters tall and towering over even the tallest of structures around. The chime of a clock tower suggests that it's already 5:30. There's plenty of time to get a good vantage point to watch the tree lighting ceremony. A spiral of snow flurries are falling delicately around you, melting as they reach the cobblestones. As you approach the square, your heart flutters. Little wooden stalls, roofs dusted with blankets of snow, encircle the tree. Food stalls sell hot pastries rolled in sugar and cinnamon, steaming sausages, and fresh salted pretzels. Mulled wine and hot cider flow. Vendors sell handmade items and wares, rustic wands, unique broomsticks, pottery, candles, paintings, and hand-carved marionettes. You and Brahm amble round the perimeter, eyeing the marvelous toys, gifts, and magic supplies for sale. You can't remember ever feeling so charmed as you do now. It's as though you've stepped into a Christmas card. And as you weave through the stalls, admiring watercolor paintings of Surrey Alley through the seasons, paintings with leaves or snow or rain that really falls before your eyes, or gasping at exquisitely made garments, you keep your eyes peeled for a special gift for a very special person. You know it as soon as your eyes fall upon it. You don't say anything, but you begin to drift effortlessly toward the tiny stall. Brahm has to hasten back to catch up with you after realizing you're no longer by his side. There's nothing so magical about it, really, but something about it catches your eye, captures your heart, and doesn't let go. Behind the stall's birchwood counter sits a small, middle-aged woman, bent over something in her hands, which move with a careful, deliberate activity. All around her, on the counter, on shelves behind her, on floating shelves and hanging from the ceiling, are hand-carved wooden nutcrackers, each unique and unalike as snowflakes. There must be hundreds of them, every size, color, shape, and style. Some are classic, some minimalistic, some flamboyant, and some fantastical, each alluring in its own way. And from what you can tell, there's nothing inherently magical about them, but their charm is undeniable. The maker sits there carving away, not noticing you just over the counter, with an expression of peaceful concentration. She looks miles and miles away, unobservant of all the hustle and bustle around her. The snow could be coming down in droves, you think, and she might not look up from her work, so consumed is she by focus. There's one nutcracker among the hundreds that you're drawn to. It's small enough to fit in your hand, you think, and it hangs from a red ribbon on a hook within the stall. It might hang nicely on a modest Christmas tree. This nutcracker is intricately carved and hand-painted in shade after shade of green. Around its arms twist tiny vines of decorative ivy, and holly leaves and berries stick out of its white beard. It wears a crown of holly too, and a cape of luxurious green velvet trimmed with fur. As small as it is, it looks regal and impressive. Somehow you have no eyes for the other items in the stall. This one alone calls out to you. You approach the counter, hoping not to startle the woodworker, but her eyelids lift slowly to meet your gaze, then wrinkle into a warm smile. The piece in her hands is mostly unfinished, but you can see the start of another unique creation coming to fruition there, as though the nutcracker is emerging from the raw wood. When you ask about the little green nutcracker, the maker's eyes light up. It's one of her personal favorites, she says, pulling out her wand and summoning it down from its hook. She wraps it in brown paper, ties the small package in green ribbons, and hands it to you, bidding you take good care of the green man. You thank her, tuck the package into the pocket of your cloak, and depart. You can't stop smiling. You hope Brahm's mother will find the gift as enchanting as you do. A crowd is gathering now around the base of the great spruce tree. You and Brahm angle to get a good spot where you can see the whole tree without craning your neck. The giant arbor is decorated with red and silver baubles, bows, and candy canes. All around, bright colors shine through the approaching darkness. Voices ring clear and strong, and a shiver of anticipation strings all souls together like one grand musical instrument, waiting to ring out one silver note on the night air. It's such a feeling as can only be felt this time of year. A collective in-breath, a quiet expectancy, a quivering hopefulness, even on the darkest of nights. The hour is approaching now, and you wait with bated breath for the tree to be lit. You've never witnessed this spectacle yourself, though Brahm has told you many times that it's the most magical thing he's ever seen. The anticipation mounts as excited voices carry throughout the crowds. Brahm checks his watch. Only minutes to go. As the seconds tick by, you scan the crowd, taking in the cheery, rosy faces of everyone around you, all waiting for the same thing, the same moment, all waiting to be amazed. It's only been a few years since your initiation into this secret, magical world. A mere moment in time, really. But it feels somehow as though you've always been a part of this community. Or rather, that it's always been a part of you. Like you and the world of magic were only waiting to find each other, always just one step out of sync. Now, you feel attuned to the magic, inextricably bound to it. It flows through you in every moment, infuses your every choice. And here, among so many others, many who must have felt just as you did the first time they witnessed the miraculous, it feels stronger than ever, as though your magic reaches out to grasp others, creating a powerful ritual connection even among strangers. It's almost time. A voice rings out from somewhere unseen among the throng, counting down from 10, 10, 9. Another voice joins in, and then another, 8, 7, and more voices, 6, more voices still, and more until the whole circle speaks in one strong, unified voice. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. and for just a moment the square goes entirely dark. A hush falls over Surrey Alley, and it's briefly so silent, so dark, you can't believe it. It's like a dream. And then, with a burst of color and light and sound, it begins. The sparking of golden flames dancing like ribbons or wisps of smoke from the base of the tree, circling it in spirals all around. At first, it appears only abstract, just an enchanted flame climbing the tree, and yet not even singeing its needles. But as it circles the tree once more, activating the twinkling lights it passes one by one, you catch a glimpse of the form within the formlessness. There, flickering in and out of visibility, with a long tail whipping behind it, is a magnificent bird made of fire. On its trail echoes a note of song so bright and beautiful, it softens your heart and brings tears to your eyes. The tree springs to life beneath it, the baubles catching the light of the flame and sparkling like stars. The bird ascends higher and higher around the great spruce, ringing out its joyful song. Oh, that song. It's like the taste of the mystery potion, spiced and sweet, hopeful and nostalgic, evocative and elegiac, all at once. And at last, climbing higher into the night sky, the bird, the flame-tailed phoenix, comes to rest at the very pinnacle of the tree. Its wings flutter and rustle, then settle into stillness, its tail relaxing. And there it burns. The boughs of the tree catch not the flames, but glow greenish gold under its constant flicker. And then there is an eruption of sound, cheers and shouts from the crowd. You clap your hands together with an unexpected ferocity, whistling your approval. Laughter, cries of merriment, and a milling and a mumbling and a marveling. Slowly the celebration diminishes, and the sizzle of sausages on the grill can once again be heard above the din. The crowds resume their shopping. The phoenix burns on above the square, little snowflakes dancing in the glow of its flame. A halo of warmth remains in the wake of the ceremony, even as the crowds disperse, and a heaving sense of denouement settles over you. The anticipation past, you feel your muscles relax and your mind soften. Now you feel a glowing tiredness and a longing to rest. Brahm agrees, and the two of you slip down a side street. There's a station at the end where you can pay a penny each way to travel anywhere in the magical network of mirrors. Coming down from all the excitement, giddy with exhaustion, you pay your fares and step through a narrow mirror, one at a time, right into the den of Brahm's family home. Before the room even materializes before you, you hear an exclamation of delight from a familiar voice. Then several more join in. It's Brahm's mother who cries out first, and she runs to embrace you both as your feet fall upon the rug. There's a roaring fire in the hearth, and Brahm's whole family is here. Some lounge in armchairs by the fire or stretch out on the floor. There's a small but richly decorated Christmas tree in the corner, surrounded by a pile of gifts wrapped in brightly colored paper and tied up with red ribbons. It feels like home, like childhood, like magic, being surrounded by so much love and gratitude. You're happy to take off your heavy cloak and sit before the fire. You can feel your icy nose and fingers defrost in its radiant warmth. Soon there's tea and a heap of cookies on the coffee table, and there's music playing lightly under the cheerful conversation. Brahm tells everyone about the tree lighting. The best one yet, he insists, a rosy glow in his cheeks. Someone starts describing a cherished Christmas memory, and soon everyone is chiming in with jokes and stories from Christmases past. Brahm's father is eyeing the pile of presents clandestinely and even sneaks away from the table to shake one by his ear. Brahm's mother, with a knowing look in her eyes, suggests everyone should open one gift tonight, to delighted surprise from her children. There's laughter and glee as everyone makes for the pile, retrieving a gift with their name on the tag. Your stomach fills with butterflies as you see Brahm's mother take the tiny package wrapped in brown paper. You do hope she likes it. You watch as she unties the ribbon and removes the green-clad nutcracker. She looks up at you with glossy eyes and pulls you into a firm embrace. She doesn't say anything, but crosses to the tree and hangs the ornament from a prominent branch. Then she squeezes your hand. It seems for a moment that you can see in her eyes the same bright and moved expression as you noticed in the woodworkers when you selected the gift. It gives you some pause. The gift exchange continues until there's a clutter of wrapping paper strewn across the floor and a satisfied gleam on every face. Brahm's brothers wave their wands to clean up the debris. The music plays, and the fire continues to burn. You feel flush with warmth and pleasure. You can see light snow falling outside the window. It strikes you that this, more than any spell or potion or charm, is true magic. The delicate yet resilient ties that bind people together as family, blood or chosen. The memories and private myths that spring from closeness over time a tapestry of sentiment, the warp and weft of which creates something bigger than any one person or any group of people. And at this time of year, with darkness creeping in at the corners, these shining threads are more important than ever. After a time, family members start heading up the creaky stairs to bed. You're one of the last left in the den, feeling yourself swoon with sleepiness near the fire. At last, you too climb the stairs to the room made up for you. Your eyelids droop as you climb, and you waste no time collapsing into the soft pillows on your bed. Your head swims in and out of consciousness and surrenders to sleep. You dream that you're flying through the night over snow-sugared rooftops and smoking chimneys, unfazed by winter's icy bite. Behind you stretches a long, fiery tail, and in the flames are the images and shapes of all the Christmases you've lived, and all the Christmases that ever were. You soar, surging, spurred on by the strength of the magic that abounds in quiet places, on modest boughs, and in the eyes and hands of loved ones. You shine on. The tinkling of the shop bell has been a near constant refrain throughout today. From the earliest hours of the morning shift, when you first opened the door to see a small line of people waiting, to these final moments of the evening, as stragglers hurry to catch you before closing time. How many young wizards and witches have you helped today, each of them swimming in robes too long, robes their parents assume they'll grow into by next month? How many nervous, awe-struck families stopped into your shop on their first visit to Surrey Alley? Though it's exhausting, you look forward to this season, and especially this day each year. Tomorrow, most of the little ones will board a transport to take them to the School of Sorcery. For some, it will be their first such journey. You remember your first trip to school, the butterflies that danced in your belly, the stars in your eyes as you first beheld the castle. Though nothing can compare to that first spectacular approach, you feel an echo of that awe and wonder in the faces of the children who pass through your shop. It's so easy to slide into carelessness, slipping into the mundane repetition of the day. Each child comes in for the same few potions ingredients the same standard cauldrons and implements. Each family confronts you with the same questions about antidotes and potions classroom safety. You've memorized a stock set of answers and you've organized the shop so the same few ingredients are easy to access. But any time you find yourself becoming complacent, you catch the twinkle in a child's eye, and you remember how you felt when you were in their shoes, when it was all so new. And your heart melts just a bit to know you can calm their nerves and excite them about their magical journey. Perhaps, just like you, one of these children will discover the transcendent beauty in the art of potion making. What drew you to the profession? The realization that the natural and magical gifts of the earth could come together in creative and transformative ways, inducing new states of being. They've poured in and out of your apothecary a steady stream of customers and families all day. In the weeks leading up, of course, many of the returning students were clever enough to come in before the rush. Those older students and their parents know their way around the shop by now, and they slip in and out with quick pleasantries and a few questions. But there's always a panic on the last day as the newer folks scramble to prepare to send their children to school. Now, with a late afternoon shade settling outside the shop, only a few customers remain, waiting to be rung up. You quietly hope it's the last time you've heard the shop bell for today. You assist the last families with assembling their children's potions kits, wrapping their purchases carefully in brown paper, and send them out into the evening. The last family asks you where they might find a good bite of supper. You recommend a popular tavern just 2 doors down if they're looking for something quick. But if they want to try something truly special, your favorite bistro is a half-mile or so down the way. It's quiet, candle-lit, and the best-kept secret in Surrey Alley, you assure them with a wink. Well, second best, you think to yourself. Only a few moments later, with the last tinkling of the bell, your shop is empty again. A ringing silence, save for the constant low simmering, the bubbling of potions in their display cauldrons, settles around you. The shop itself seems to sigh with relief. With a flick of your wand, you dim the shop's lights and move to the door. You step outside for a moment, the first time you've been outside since the shop opened this morning. A clock is chiming somewhere, striking 6. It's late summer, and the sun won't set for a few hours still. But there's a lazy quality to the light. The sun is low and obscured by the tight quarters of the shop-lined alley, tucked away in a hidden corridor of London. Soon, the lamps that line the cobbled pathways will spring to life. Around you, other shopkeepers are locking their doors, the old-fashioned folk using thick brass keys, and the younger upstarts simply waving their wands at the doors. The owner of the nearby bookshop, Bob and Wheel Books, tips his hat to you. You offer a smile and a wave. On the faces of all the proprietors, you recognize your same exhaustion and delirious contentment. There's nothing more satisfying than the end of a long day at work. But tonight is different, of course. You won't be turning in for some time yet. Yet as the supply shops, books, robes, wands, brooms, end their days, many businesses are just now welcoming the influx of customers. The taverns, cafes, and bistros that see half their annual business on these few days before the start of school. They are packed to the gills, overflowing onto the sidewalks and cobblestones with patrons and families, all drinking each other's health, singing to their sheepish children, and reminiscing about their own days at school. Head fuzzy and heart light, you turn back into the apothecary and potion shop. You flip the sign in the window to closed and, waving your hand, lower the shades. As you block out some of the natural light from the windows, the light in the shop takes on a dim, golden warmth. Little background noise penetrates the shop, and though you are situated in a bustling commercial street, all feels quiet and cozy. You savor the solitude after the endless stream of customers, the rest for your strained vocal cords, and the low flickering light. There's an armchair behind your counter, one that hasn't been sat in all day. You take a seat there now and feel a rushing exhale escape your lips. Your limbs go limp, and an involuntary laugh falls over you. Running a hand across the soft purple velvet of the upholstery, you feel your eyelids begin to droop. And oh, how luxurious it would be to let yourself fall into a heavy sleep here in your chair, lulled by the musical sounds of cauldrons abubble. Your body starts to melt into the grooves of the chair. Your mind slows. And now you rend yourself from the embrace of sleep, your day is not yet over. There is more work to be done still, and it's work that cannot wait until tomorrow. In your profession, the design and production of magical potions and tinctures, much sway is given to the time of day, to the phase of the moon, and the position of the stars. You must stay present for a few hours more, as tonight is an auspicious night. You busy yourself awaiting the sunset by organizing the disheveled shelves and sweeping the debris from the shop floor. It's as though a whirlwind has whipped through your inventory. Dried lavender buds blanket the floor, and tiny drawers of rare ingredients, powdered horn of unicorn, silphium seed, and mandrake root, need tucked in. You approach each task with loving care, wiping the mouths of open cauldrons with a damp rag, repositioning the displays, and misting the saggy-looking live orchids in the corner. Everything in your shop is special, necessary, and beautiful in your eyes and hands. You hear the distant chiming of the clock bell again as you polish the cauldrons, and again as you tidy the stack of new textbooks. Finally, you take in the shop, sparkling and refreshed. You look to your watch. Only a few minutes to moonrise. Feeling the start of jitters in your body, you take a deep, cleansing breath. You retrieve a pair of pruning shears and slip past the counter, through the crowded storeroom, out the back door, into the garden. Since you acquired the property and opened the apothecary several years ago, not a soul but yourself has set foot in this wild and wonderful plot of land. Well, yourself and your animal familiar. It's enclosed on 3 sides by an enchanted illusion fence. Your neighboring shops, when they step out back to dispose of waste or take their lunches on a pleasant day, see nothing but rubbish bins and broom parking on your back lot. But behind the invisible curtain you've drawn lies a wonder of magic and mystery. Here you've cultivated a thriving garden and greenhouse of rare and magical botanicals, many of which are found only in the remotest regions of the earth, some of which, you suspect, only you know of. These are the true secret ingredients in your signature potions, and they grow with unrestrained splendor in your secret garden. The scent of the garden is invigorating this evening. The plants most accustomed to tropical climates enjoy the warm moisture that clings to their petals and fronds. There's a smoky, silvery perfume on the air tonight under the blue and purple twilight. From beyond the illusory enclosure, muffled by layers of strong magic, you can hear the echo of laughter and song from the tavern close by. It may as well be a world away. As you wait for the diaphanous veil of moonlight to fall over the green sanctuary, you glide past a trellis of English ivy and thorny bushes of elegant roses. You pass into the greenhouse, its glass ceiling and arched windows drinking in the last efforts of daylight. You feel the fronds of a decadent flowering fern tickle your shoulders. You inhale the intoxicating perfume of the Lady of the Night orchid, which makes your head swim slightly. But there's only one flower that can hold your attention tonight, and it has yet to bloom. Overhead, the sky is growing dark, and stars begin to emerge from the velvet blackness, twinkling through the glass. One star shines brighter than the rest, bigger and exuding a greenish glow. You squint slightly, and it comes into better focus as you hold it in your gaze. It's not a star after all, but the planet Venus. A smile crosses your lips. The brewing of potions is a delicate art. So much relies on the conditions and potency of the ingredients. For some botanicals, magical properties are dependent on the environment or cultivation and on the auspices of heavenly spheres. Tonight, you await the conjunction of the full moon and Venus. At the moment the two bodies shine brightest in the sky, the key ingredient in your most popular potion will bloom, and you must harvest it at exactly the right time to capture all of its magical potential. Cut the flower too soon, and it will be weak and useless. Wait too long, and the effects of the magic will decay. This is why the butterflies carry out their ballet in your tummy. Tonight, after a long and overwhelming day of work, is the night of conjunction. Should you miss the moment, you'll have to wait until the next alignment to brew this potion, and your stores are running low. You fixate on a small green shrub at the center of the greenhouse. It's not much to look at now, but when the full moon and Venus cast their light together upon it, the plant should tell a different story. All that's left now is to wait. It's now that you realize you're not alone in the greenhouse. Your animal familiar, nearly blending in with the greenery of a sage plant, is snoozing quietly in the corner. You cross over to them, stroking their head. They lift an eyelid, then close it once more, returning to sleep with what looks like a smile on their face. You recall in your youth finding them in the wild hunt, a nearby shop that sells familiars and supplies. You remember how comfortable you felt with this animal in an instant, and how you've hardly ever been separated since that day. They have been a good friend and loyal ally in your magical journey from its inception. Now, the hour of conjunction approaches. You shift your gaze between your watch and the sky as seen through the greenhouse glass. You must remind yourself to breathe normally. Inhale. Exhale. The sequence of the alignment unfolds like a heavenly ballet. All around you, ivy, vines, and orchids seem to gasp and quiver as above, the bright Venus and the silver moon converge and gleam. Clutching your shears, you fix your gaze on the unremarkable green plant at the center of the greenhouse, and you watch as it slowly, luminously comes to life. In 3 places, all at once and with uniform grace, white buds appear and swell as though drawing in a deep, collective breath. Then once the buds have swollen to impressive size, they seem to collectively exhale, sigh, even swoon, bursting forth with bright white blossoms, petal over petal, unfurling like the notes of a song in canon. Theme and variation, endless repetition, each layer of petals blooming like a fractal of the one before, seemingly without beginning or end. And oh, with them comes such a sweet fragrance, cool and fresh and woodsy like the night. The scent of the blossoms dares to transport you through acres of memory and leave you suspended in moments of the past, luxuriating in perfumes and discovery. But now, oh bless them, your familiar utters a low sound. It's just enough to lift you from the looming reverie and bring you back to your singular purpose. With one swift action, and at just the moment of peak blossoming, just before the short-lived petals can soften and wilt, you join the planetary ballet and snip the 3 blooms from the plant. A heavy cloud passes over the moon as the blossoms float, feather-like and in slow motion, to the ground. Your shoulders drop, and your heart slows from its rapid pounding to a normal rhythm once more. You smile and scoop up the tender blossoms. 3 blooms in one conjunction. You whisper thanks to your familiar and to the skies for such a bounty. And you take the fragrant flowers back through your secret garden into the candlelit shop. It takes a great effort to keep your head from swimming as you handle the flowers. The Hypnos gardenia, which you named yourself after a mythological personification of sleep, for you are certain you were the first to discover it deep in the mountains of Thessaly, blooms only briefly at the conjunction of the moon and Venus. Its petals produce an oil with potent soporific qualities, and it is the key, secret ingredient in the potion for which you are known, the Sweet Dreams Potion. Honed to perfection during years of experimentation, Sweet Dreams is also the concoction of which you're most proud. Its balance of ingredients not only sends the drinker into a deep, restorative sleep, but its magical properties induce pleasant, meaningful dreams tailored to the individual. Customers have come back to your shop with shining eyes, thanking you for giving them the gift of rest and describing dreams of peaceful shores, satisfying quests, and reunited loved ones. You do what you do for them, of course, but also a little bit for yourself. For every time you brew a potion, especially the Sweet Dreams Potion, your craft nourishes you. Your creativity gives you something back, something hard to describe, but beautiful nonetheless. You like to do the first steps of brewing the potion by hand without magic, or mostly without magic. You like the feeling of the flower petals in your fingers and the methodical, repetitive, almost meditative activity. Gingerly, you remove the buttery petals of the gardenia blossoms one by one, placing each inside a glass jar. They spring back slightly against each other, their edges curling delicately, emitting that sweet, creamy fragrance. Once the petals are all layered inside the jar, you cover them with argan oil. Here, a little bit of magic comes in handy. For ideally, the petals should have hours or days to steep before extracting the oil. But you've mastered a little spell that can capture tiny fragments of time and seal them temporarily inside a proper vessel. You perform the spell now and watch as a small, swirling vortex of spinning stars begins to warp the surface of the argan oil. You seal the jar tightly, the shard of time inside. This will speed along the infusion process. With 3 voluminous blossoms of gardenia, you've enough to make a generous quantity of the potion. So you select one of your larger cauldrons. It takes up ample space in the crowded shop. So using your wand, you sweep several displays and shelves to the corners. The candlelight flickers in the wake of the movement. You take a quick dip back to the secret garden to retrieve a vessel of moon water from a basin, cleansed and charged in the lunar light. Now, up from their rest, your animal familiar follows you inside. You summon the dried ingredients from tiny drawers, high shelves, and secret stores. Sprigs of French lavender, valerian root, and chamomile. As the moon water simmers in the basin of the cauldron, you combine the herbs in a stone mortar and begin to crush them with a pestle. With each turn of the tool, fresh scents and essential oils are released, filling the shop with delightful fragrance. As the lavender springs to life with its delicate, powdery scent, it both invigorates and calms your senses. At once, you're transported to the lavender fields of Provence, where you harvested the herbs. Upon the spirals of sweet scent, memories of traveling through France with a loved one are activated. Memories of sharing meals, riding trains, and touring manicured royal gardens. You sprinkle the crushed herbs into the basin of the cauldron, where the simmering water absorbs and releases even more fragrance. You add a pinch of powdered mugwort, just enough to unlock pleasant, detailed dreams, but not so much as to pick up its bitter flavor notes. Now, your time spell having worked its magic on the jar of petals, you prepare to add the most important ingredient. You twist open the lid, releasing an almost overpowering floral scent. You hold your breath against the waves of it, lest you should fall asleep at your cauldron. The tiny time vortex slows on the surface of the oil. You strain the liquid, pressing and squeezing the petals with a spoon, another part you like to do by hand, and you capture it in a decorative glass bottle. The infused oil has a pearlescent sheen that picks up the shop's candlelight and glimmers with pale blues and violets. A single drop of the oil, undiluted, would be enough to send a hippogriff into instant slumber. So, this bottle, if it keeps for a while, should yield many cauldrons of fresh, sweet dreams. For tonight's brewing, you collect only a small amount in a dropper, and you release 3 precise drops into the simmering liquid. Stopping the bottle with a cork, you store it safely in the back room to use for future batches. You'll brew again at the next full moon. When the drops of oil hit the surface of the potion, its contents swirl and its color changes to a shiny, iridescent purple. Steam rises from the cauldron, taking on abstract, spiraling shapes that resemble symbols from dreams you only vaguely remember. You stir the potion clockwise 12 times and watch the liquid lighten ever so slightly with each turn, stopping when it achieves a dusky mauve. Now, you add drops of honey and orange peel for taste. 1 stir counterclockwise. The sweet orange clings to the lavender swirls in a luscious harmony. The balance is just right. Now, all that's left is to wait, as the potion should simmer an hour to allow all the ingredients to combine and activate. You pass the hour in your velvet armchair, your familiar curled up and snoozing again nearby. You read by candlelight from a book of short stories you purchased from Bob and Wheel Books. The story you choose tonight is about a magical palace beneath the sea where a dragon holds court. The sound of bubbling liquid fills your ears. You feel your head sagging and eyelids falling. When the hour is up and you're happy with the look and texture of the potion, you use your wand to fleetly fill dozens of small, prepared bottles, small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. Each bottle, blown in the shape of a crescent moon, holds a single, precisely measured serving of sweet dreams. You stop the bottles and send them into neat rows upon an eye-level shelf. There's only one tiny bottle that won't fit, and this one you pocket. You'll try it tonight for a quality assurance. After carefully restoring the shop to order and cleaning out the large cauldron, you step into the storeroom, followed by your familiar. You flick your wand, and from the ceiling materializes a narrow, spiral staircase. You climb the stair, which leads to your residence on the second floor. Upstairs, the fragrance from tonight's brew seems to have seeped into the walls of your cozy apartment. Before turning into bed, you step out onto the balcony that overlooks Surrey Alley. The night is cool and rings with laughter and conversation from the taverns. The cobblestones are shiny and black against the lamplit darkness. A bevy of stars shine overhead, along with the full silver moon and blinking Venus. You savor the fresh air after such a long, rewarding day. You retire to your bedroom, where your familiar is already sitting in the sill of the bay window. You open the window a crack so as to let in a breeze and the fresh scent from the garden out back. A breeze does come, cool and enchanting, and carrying herbaceous scent. You uncork the moon-shaped bottle of dusky potion, filling the room with notes of woodsy lavender. You take a small sip to taste. The honey dances sweetly on your tongue, and the oil from the orange peel warms the back of your throat. Under the sweetness, you can detect the soporific complexities of the herbs and gardenia essence. You drink back the rest of the potion slowly. It's perfectly balanced. The recipe is just right. Already within moments, your body begins to soften and blur at the edges, tingling and warm. Your head becomes sweetly light. You slide into bed and pull a light blanket up to your shoulders, snuggling into the softness of the mattress, surrendering to the sway of the potion. You let your head fall against your pillow and close your eyes. Sweet dreams come to you in the form of lavender fields and bountiful harvests, loved ones' faces, and palaces made of luxurious flowers. The dreams speak to you in their own undecipherable language of symbol. They speak to you of cherished secrets, of the creative spark you nurture deep within the infinite blossoms of your soul. The chill of oncoming winter turns the mist to icy crystals that hang on the very shoulders of morning. You pull your cloak tight, grateful for its thick barrier to the cold. Your exhale escapes visibly, spectral spirals on the air. You lean for a brief rest on your walking stick and peer through the mists. This is how Glastonbury Tor appears in your imagination and in your dreams, how it always appears, mist-shrouded and cold, as yet untouched by the first true frost, but bracing itself against winter's breath. The persistent green of the grass, gold-edged by morning's hazy light, waits for a translucent kiss of ice, then blankets of powdery snow. A gauzy glimmer of dawn on the horizon breaks the opal-white sheen of sky. This image of mist-muddled dawn at Glastonbury holds sway over your memory, so that this annual journey, though you've made it many times, collapses into a singular tableau. Your senses remember the sight, the smell, the sensations. Your muscles remember the steps, the climb, the motions. A bloom of recognition energizes this private ritual. You remember the first time you made this pilgrimage, how much younger you were then, naive and unflinching. You smile to think of that time in your life when you had such independence as you could not yet understand. The days of your apprenticeship with the great wandmaker Lucan Lafleur. He was a splendid teacher, but he gave you great creative freedom and encouraged you to explore the world beyond your upbringing, to expand your knowledge, experience, and inspiration. You owe so much to Lafleur, not least the inheritance he left you. After you studied under him to become a successful wand maker in your own right, he bequeathed you his beloved storefront in Surrey Alley, the nation's epicenter of magical commerce. Along with the shop came its inventory and contents, thousands of handcrafted, exquisite Lafleur wands, as well as decades of records, sketches, and journals. While you donated much to magical museums and archives, you chose to reopen the store under a new name. With the blessing of your late mentor, you sourced wands from all over the world and crafted and sold your own. Now, all throughout the magical world, your name is synonymous with wandcraft, and you're respected as highly as Lafleur was. But tied now to a storefront and motivated to keep your business thriving, you can appreciate how untethered you once were. Adventures, flights of fancy were accessible to you then. Now you must carve out time and space to reflect and withdraw from responsibility. You suppose that's always the challenge of growing older? Finding ways to recapture the freedoms of youth while still loving and cherishing your obligations to work, family, or community. You regret nothing. You love the wand shop and the craft itself with a passion that shows no sign of abating. But this annual escape from the four walls of the store, with all the planning and preparation that comes with it, always rejuvenates you. It feels like a return home to your creativity, your past, and yourself. On that first journey to Glastonbury so many years ago, your head buzzed with ideas and ambition. You had traveled the countryside seeking new materials and inspiration. Lafleur was known for wands that were so light and thin they were almost weightless, which presented the challenge of enclosing a magical core. The wand's magic, after all, depends on the potency of the core, whether it's unicorn hair, mermaid scale, or dragon's tooth. That whole year, you went round in search of delicate yet spiritus magical materials to serve as an arcane power source. You collected the feathers of a prophetic raven who resides in the Salisbury Plain. You bargained with a sad-eyed unicorn in the Caledonian forests of the north. You joined the excavation of an ancient magical site and traded for the horn of a minotaur, which, powdered, might yield a powerful yet temperamental wand. Lafleur always taught you that a great wand was made through the thoughtful and focused marriage of wood and core. He favored hazel, holly, and yew wood for wands, as they yielded consistent results, though they were rarely the most powerful. He sometimes worked with hawthorn and alder, and rarely with evergreens. Your own wand of his make is a special blend of woods, honeysuckle, and hazel. Lafleur designed it as an homage to a poem he loved, one of the lays of Marie de France, who wrote charming stories of Arthurian romance. The lay in question, Chevefroid, describes the true and forbidden love between Tristan and Isolde. So bonded they were in love, Marie says. They were like the hazel and the honeysuckle, which may grow entwined around one another, sustaining each other. If one is cut, the other will die at once. So they are like two hearts that beat as one. Of such importance is the relationship between the wood and the core. Without each other, they cannot survive. Together, they make something greater than themselves. Magic. But under Lafleur's tutelage, you opened your mind and began to rethink the practice of wandcraft, the theory of it. What if, you thought, the wood itself were treated somehow with natural magic, infused even? Could wands be made even lighter, more delicate if they didn't require a magical core, because the material itself already contained potent magical properties? You shared your theory with Lafleur, who had his doubts, but always encouraged you to follow your instincts. Even now, all these years later, you feel uplifted by the faith he had in you, by the steadfast trust with which he sent you to explore this theory. It was here, beneath the majesty of Glastonbury Tor, that your exploration began. An experiment that would become the seed of your signature wand and a revolution in the craft. Glastonbury is a site long associated with myth and legend. It is the highest of the hills in the surrounding region, looming over Somerset like a great sleeping giant. Round its girth is a ring of terrace-like grooves, interpreted by many as the remnants of millennia-old terraforming, perhaps in the form of a mystical pattern or maze. It's been long thought to be the site of ancient pre-Christian worship, and magic users like yourself have come to the site for generations, seeking to steep in its mystical energies. Glastonbury is also the cradle of British Christianity. It was here that, according to legend, Joseph of Arimathea brought the Holy Grail and buried it. Supposedly, a spring began to flow at the site of the burial, and that spring still flows. Pilgrims come from all over the world to drink of its waters, hoping it will grant them healing and extended youth. This Joseph walked with a staff, and legend also holds that when he struck it into the ground at Glastonbury, the staff grew roots and flowered into a hawthorn tree, one that miraculously bloomed twice each year instead of once. It was this part of the legend that drew you to Somerset. For if it was possible to craft a wand that needed no magical core, what better wood to work with than that of the holy Glastonbury thorn, wood from a tree out of legend, which drunk of the waters of the Holy Grail. Today, gazing out toward the Tor, you feel the same electric excitement as you did on that first journey. The sense of uncertainty and anticipation, the prickling fire of passionate trust in your vision. The mist swirls over the town so thick and opaque it resembles a body of water. Long ago, 1,000 years or more, the spot on which you stand would have indeed been lake. For Somerset, the summer country, was all marshland. At times when the fens flooded, just as the Tor now rises from the mists, it would have emerged an island from shallow lake. A boat would have been necessary to cross to it. That's what earned the Tor its other great legendary connection, beyond the stories of Joseph and the Grail, its association with the magical Isle of Avalon, a place of power, enchantment, and mystery. Avalon is the legendary resting place of King Arthur. In the romances, he's ferried across the lake by his half-sister, Morgan Le Fay, and taken to the sacred isle to heal his wounds. Here, the once and future king awaits the hour of his people's need, at which time he'll awake once more and come to their salvation. You take a frosty inhale, on which the scent of sweet grass and winterberry glides, and you shift your weight from your walking stick. It's been enough of a rest now, and with your strength renewed, you shake off the onslaught of memories, preparing to approach the Tor. On a morning like this, with the mist so thick it's almost solid, you summon one of your favorite forms of magical transportation. Focusing your intention and gesturing deliberately with your hazel and honeysuckle wand, you call it up from the mists. The first part to emerge is the carved wooden bow in the elegant form of a dragon's head. The rest of the boat follows, dark wood and just large enough to hold 1 or 2 people. You climb into the stern, feeling it rock beneath you on the steady sway of morning air. The mist behaves like water, gently lapping at the sides of the boat. Then, using your walking stick like an oar, you cut a straight path through the layer of mist toward the shining green hill, ringed now in golden dawn. It's exceedingly peaceful, gracefully gliding across the surface of the misty morning. The haze is thick enough that even the earliest risers in the town would not see the hull of your vessel from the ground below. As you approach the Tor, a chorus of birdsong, larks, and firecrests whistles merrily over the fog. You feel weightless, suspended over the village. Time seems to slip away and collapse in on itself, for now you sail across a glassy lake, just as the pilgrims of the ancient world did, toward the mysterious isle, toward this gateway between worlds, this locus of magic, worship, and myth. The boat comes to a pause just as its bow brushes the soft grass of the hill. You disembark, then wave your wand to send the vessel sinking once more into the mists. Your feet treasure the sensation of solid ground, even grass slippery with dew. Here you can feel the gentle kiss of sunlight on your face, the sun's warmth at last slicing through the frosty air as it crests over the landscape. Your body knows the grooves of the hillside, and your legs carry you over the ringed earthen terraces in a slow, meditative gait. No one knows the origins of the terracing, whether they served an agricultural or defensive purpose, or, rather, if they followed mystical patterns and pagan tradition. Were they created thousands of years ago to serve as a labyrinth, a kerdroya for pilgrims to follow on their journey to the top of the Tor? A solemn path that encouraged focus, meditation, and slow revelation. Whatever their original purpose, this is how you employ the terraces now. There's a quicker path, one that cuts right up the side of the Tor, and even a concrete walkway for tourists. But you are no tourist. Your craft brings you here, and the ancient energies that resonate in the Isle must be harnessed through intention and devotion. Your walking stick springs back against the spongy earth as you go round the rings of the Tor, supporting your weight. You're not as young as you once were, but you can feel the presence of your youthful self, like an imprint or a glittering shadow walking just steps ahead. You follow faithfully behind. As you circle the Tor via the terraces, you intersect again and again with the footpath. This early, there are few visitors to the site, but once or twice, you encounter hikers on their way to the zenith. You greet them with a friendly nod, ignoring the puzzled looks they give, observing your unusual method of climbing. Surely, they think, it would be much easier to follow the concrete path. But on you perambulate, round and round the rings of the hill. The sun crowns the monolithic St. Michael's Tower, and the morning mist begins to shift and break over the town. All those years ago, when you were first testing your new theories of wandcraft, you came to Glastonbury looking for the thorn tree of legend. Certainly the original tree, the one that sprung from the staff of Joseph of Arimathea, was long gone. But the gardeners of Glastonbury had taken meticulous cuttings and grafts over the centuries. New trees were planted, cultivated, and maintained from that original. Each year at Christmas time, when the tree flowered, a budded branch was sent to the British monarch and set with the feast table. The tree that now provides this branch has been kept on the grounds of St. John's Church. So, to the churchyard you went, hoping to procure a branch of your own. Lafleur taught you much of the technique of wandcraft, but he emphasized more than anything the importance of relationships to the art. The relationship between wood and core, of course, but also the relationship between the wand and the wielder, the bond created through the performance of magic, and the relationships you, the Wandmaker, form with your community. With this in mind, and a desire to ethically retrieve the material, you sought out the head gardener responsible for the stewardship of the Glastonbury Thorn. He was a kindly man, just past middle age, and endearingly enthusiastic about his work. He agreed heartily to give you a tour of Glastonbury Abbey and St. John's Church, with an eye to the horticultural history of the place. You admired the way his eyes lit up when he described the species of the Glastonbury thorn, its unique characteristics, and its remarkable tendency to flower in both winter and spring. You listened faithfully as he explained the process by which he made cuttings and grafts to cultivate new descendants of that original tree, preserving the bifloral behavior. It struck you at the time that his process, scientific, precise, and grounded in natural principles, was not so unlike yours, not so unlike the working of magic. Both require, after all, specificity, intention, and proper conditions. They simply access different kinds of natural energies, though both are of the natural world. While the practice of magic and the whole community of magic users worldwide depends on careful secrecy given the unpleasant history of persecution, you held Lafleur's comments about relationships at the front of your mind when you made the decision to be honest with the gardener. You had no intention of stealing a sprig of the Glastonbury thorn from under his nose, and certainly you did not feel good about glamoring or hoodwinking the gardener through spell work. Instead, heartened by his bright-eyed devotion to the art of horticulture, you chose to share with him your own craft. Of course, he didn't believe you at first. He thought you were a charlatan or a prankster. But when you showed him what you could do, you demonstrated a bit of harmless magic that made the berries of a holly bush turn briefly to rubies, then back again. He began to soften. Over a cup of tea to calm his nerves, the gardener finally admitted that somehow, perhaps after living here in this mystifying place for so long, he'd always known there was some greater force, something just outside his reach or just beyond his sight. He'd always felt the presence of magic. He'd just never been quite able to grasp it. It was as though he'd always stood beside some translucent curtain, watching vague forms and figures move behind it, out of his comprehension. And it had always been there, so he'd simply grown to ignore it. But now, you'd lifted the veil and given him a glimpse of what wondrous things lie beyond. That was the beginning, of one of the most important friendships of your life and career. You and the gardener came to trust one another, and he agreed to help you obtain the branch you desired. Together, you returned to the churchyard to find the tree. That was on a snowy afternoon at the winter solstice. When you came to the churchyard, you found a gaggle of school children from the nearby nursery gathered for their annual visit to the thorn. You watched with amusement, faces pink in the chill, as their teacher circled them round the trunk and led them in the singing of carols. Their voices were high and clear, climbing the wintry air like the ringing of tiny bells. The tree towered over them, its widespread branches aburst with the miraculous holiday blossoms, the white flowers like puffs of snow. After the children departed, leaving snow trails in their wake, a frosty, sparkling peace settled in the courtyard. You watched with admiration as the gardener lovingly approached the tree to take a cutting of a small branch. Only one, you asked for. You couldn't hear what he was saying, but you're certain he was speaking to the tree as he cut the branch, perhaps reassuring it that this sprig was destined for something great. You took that branch back to London, where you studied under Lafleur, and you carved it into your very first coreless wand. Just as you had hoped, the wand performed beautifully and consistently, even without the magical core, for its mother tree had flourished on the waters of the Chalice Well, and its ancestors had sprung from the source of the Holy Grail. Lafleur was proud of you. He even remarked that you might change the face of wandcraft forever. With a kind of tragic pride, he expressed that his way was the old way, the way of the past. But no, you assured him, his method would persist. You promised to keep it alive as long as you practiced. And you kept your promise. When you inherited the wand shop, you still sourced and created wands in the old tradition. But you also made wands in your new style, seeking out trees of power, ones that sit near healing wells or that house rare magical creatures. These wands would serve caregivers, healers, gardeners, and magic users whose power relies on the cooperation of the natural world. You became renowned across the world for your innovation. Each year, you returned to Glastonbury near the winter time. Each year, the gardener met you in the ruins of the abbey, and you accompanied him to cut a sprig from the thorn tree. Each year, before you departed the town, you walked together over the Tor, sharing stories of the past year, then laughed over drinks in a local tavern. Things have changed since those early years. You've grown more skilled and independent as a wand maker and as a magic user. Lafleur was right in emphasizing the power of relationships. The one you've cultivated with your craft and with your own wand is particularly strong. Though you've made many powerful, extraordinary wands in your time, you've never given up the honeysuckle and hazel wand Lafleur made for you. Like the symbiotic metaphor of the woods themselves, you feel intrinsically connected to the wand. It feels warm, comforting in your hand. It knows and anticipates your every gesture. After the death of the first thorn you used in your wand craft, the gardener kindly sent you a large branch of the tree as a memorial. It was perfectly timed after the passing of Lafleur. The gardener knew you could hardly make effective wands from the deceased limb, but he thought you might find some use for it. And indeed, you did. The walking stick that now supports you on your journey up the Tor is fashioned from it. You've made this walk ever since. Something about the journey upward, the spiraling pattern of the walk, and the reconnection of the thorn to its homeland is a restorative practice for you and a focus of magical energy. The air is clean and frosty as you finally reach the crest. St. Michael's Tower looms. You can feel a kind of hum in the earth that ripples through your body from your feet to your head. The walking stick feels alive in your grasp. A pair of young hikers, ones you encountered on the pathway, are standing beside the tower, admiring the view from the top of the Tor. They wave sweetly as you approach, then bid you a good morning and depart. You're alone. The view is magnificent, as always. The mist still lingers, translucent over the village, shifting and twisting slowly. The town must be waking up, for smoke is issuing now from chimneys, and a sense of movement begins to break through the stillness and peace of the dawn. You feel very far away from it all, from civilization. And yet, as though you've gathered up all the vibrations of the hillside, you feel surrounded by human energy. The ghosts, perhaps, of all who've made this pilgrimage, or worshipped or meditated here, of your past selves, the echoes of every walk you've made round the rings of the Tor, the shimmering shadows of you. You take a moment to bask in their presence, the wisdoms they bring, even from youth. With the hikers out of sight now, disappearing beyond the slopes, you close your eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face. Your craft has changed. You've changed. You no longer follow the gardener into churchyards, cutting the branches of young, flowering trees. You've moved beyond that. With a deep breath, hearing the whisper of music on the wind, whether it's really there or in your mind, you cannot say, but it recalls the songs of children in a winter chorus. You summon up a wellspring of magical energy within yourself. gathered up from the climb, the circling, the ancient mystical pattern. You grasp your walking stick, the memory of an ancient thorn in both hands, and with an issuing forth of your energized breath, you strike it into the soft, grassy earth. The sound of trickling water, a shimmer of sunlight behind your eyes. You open your eyes. Where your staff thrust upon the ground now flows a tiny stream, and now something sprouts from beneath the soil, twisting and yearning upward toward sunlight. A small and simple eruption of life, reborn from the old thorn, made from the bond of earth and intention, magic in nature, past and present. You watch as the little thing, no taller than your knees, spreads tiny branches that flower with tiny blossoms, white and pillowy as snow. You blink against a glassy layer of tears. You cannot help but feel overwhelmed at the sight, though you've seen it before. Each time this spontaneous surge of life shakes you to your core. You are astounded and grateful for the magical gift the earth gives you. You do not take it for granted. For some time, you sit beside the tiny thorn tree, resting your weary bones and recovering from the outpouring of magical energy. You watch the village come to life, take in the spectacular vistas of the countryside, green meadows and farmland, forest and fen. The earth itself seems to recharge you from below. When you've rested and restored your strength, you harvest the tiny tree gingerly and with loving hands and store it in your satchel. The little spring that flowed forth from the strike of your walking stick slowly dries over the flattened grass, leaving beads of dew like minuscule crystals against the blades. Then those too evaporate into the mists. The morning wanes, and you take your time descending the tor. This time you take the footpath, and you meet many visitors on their way up. Tour groups and families with eager faces or weary children. You share kindly smiles and salutations. Chalice Hill lies beneath the tor and houses a quiet, contemplative garden. Somewhere a lark is singing as you enter the gates. Ivy climbs the walls and stones surrounding the red spring, named for the red sediments left by the flowing water. Small shrines decorate nooks and crevices, filled in with holly and evergreen sprigs. The chalice well, too, is wreathed with holly, ivy, mistletoe, and fir, the red holly berries bright against such deep green. The well cover is adorned with the symbol of the Vesica Piscis, two overlapping circles. You meditate on the meaning of the symbol, the unification of opposing forces above and below. this world and the other world, the natural and the spiritual, the masculine and the feminine. You can feel a soft hum in the atmosphere. It takes some effort to pull yourself from the exquisite peace of the Chalice Well Gardens. You seem to be the only person wandering between its walls. But you have an appointment to keep, and you must depart. It's a short walk to the center of the town of Glastonbury, and just a bit further to reach the Abbey, which by now entertains many tourists and visitors. The morning grows late, and the sun stretches over the ruins, warming the chilly air of late fall. You sneak past a tour group, admiring the rectangular plot and plaque that indicate the supposed location of the tomb of King Arthur. It was excavated, records show, by monks in the 12th century who found the remains of the king and his wife, along with an inscribed cross that read, "Here lies buried the renowned King Arthur, with Guinevere, his second wife, in the Isle of Avalon." You smile to yourself as you overhear the oohs and ahs of the tourists and the mysterious affectation of the guide's voice as she tells the remarkable tale. The companion you seek is standing under a ruined archway, seemingly preoccupied with something no one else notices. As you draw closer, you see that he's studying a weed that sprung from underneath the stone. He doesn't even notice you approaching until you crouch beside him to observe the weed yourself. "Honeysuckle," you say. The gardener looks up, and his face splits into a grin. You embrace, feeling between you all the distance of a year's time. Together, you walk to a nearby cafe for an early lunch and to catch up. The gardener is long since retired, but he still visits the abbey and the churchyard regularly, sometimes as a volunteer landscaper. He can't help himself. You can understand this given the hold your craft has always had over you. You share stories of the past year with each other. He shows you pictures of his new grandchild, a wide-eyed little girl named Violet. Between the two of you, he thinks she may have magical inclinations. He tells you to watch out. In a few years, she might show up at the wand shop. Later, you visit the churchyard together, admiring the new thorn tree, which has grown massively over the year. The buds are just beginning to flower in anticipation of the winter holiday. Before you leave, the first snow flurries of the year begin to fall delicately on the green grass and melt upon the branches of the thorn. You show him the tiny tree you brought up from the magic of the tour. His eyes sparkle, impressed with how far your sorcery has come, that you can harness such energy to create new life. As twilight eventually swells its tide over the summer country, earlier and earlier as you creep toward the close of the year, you and your dear friend part ways, looking forward to next year and another reunion. Heart full and mind at peace, you prepare for the journey back to London. Mist is gathering once more over the village, and you might be able to call up the boat again, at least to bear you as far east as Bath. The smells of the wand shop, old parchment, cedar wood, and dried ink greet you warmly on your return. The night is dark, and the usually bustling corridor of Surrey Alley is as quiet as the gardens of Chalice Hill when you arrive. Lanterns glow amber in the street, casting soft light on the cobblestones. You weave through the stacks and mountains of wand boxes that cover nearly every square inch of the large store, making your way to the workshop in the back, where you light a candle. As weary as you are from travel and the long hours on your feet, some part of you still feels energized and incomplete. You retrieve this sweet little thorn from your satchel. Its flowers are wilted but still just attached. You admire the tiny thing for a moment, its delicate branches and twisted roots. How time and space have crystallized within it. As always, you are in awe of and grateful for your access to magic. Lafleur once sat in this very workshop and crafted some of the most powerful, cherished wands of all time. Now, with your little thorn as muse and material, you sit down to carve a very special wand. Each year, your Glastonbury wand is your favorite to create. You feel close to it, as you yourself cultivated the material. This year it feels even more special, more resonant, as you carve away at the fine branch, unearthing the hardy yet flexible wood at its core. You can almost see the wizard who will one day wield the wand. You see wide eyes, rosy cheeks, and focused determination. And violets. Who knows? As the wand takes shape under your knife, you trace elegant vines, leaves, and flowers around the base, so it looks alive and festive. You smooth the wood with sand, then polish it to a subtle shine. It's effortlessly light in your hands. Just holding it makes you feel younger, nimbler than before. You feel deeply bonded to it. But you never keep the Glastonbury wands. You're happy with the honeysuckle and hazel. You're bound to it. These thorn wands deserve to find a match like the one you have with yours. This one deserves to find a truly devoted, curious, and intuitive sorcerer to work with. You can almost see her now, even if it may be a few years before her arrival. Carefully placing the wand in a velvet-lined box, you snuff out the candle on the table. Your bones ache from the arduous yet glorious day. You can hardly believe that you stood on the tour only hours ago. It seems like a lifetime since. For cases when you find yourself at the workbench late in the night, you keep a modest bed made in the storeroom. It's nothing fancy or luxurious, but it's a comfort that you don't have to leave the shop and make the trip home. Tonight is one of those nights, you decide. The bed fits snugly in a corner between shelves and shelves of archives and core materials and boxes of extremely rare or valuable wands. These are kept out of public view but brought out for interested customers from time to time. They're all of Lafleur's make. You climb into the little bed and draw the covers up to your chest. It's pleasantly warm in the storeroom. Waving your wand, you extinguish the lamp by the doorway, ushering in a windowless, enclosing darkness. Your eyes drink it in, savoring it, before you let them fall closed. Sleep is upon you in moments, like a shroud of mist. All around you, wands are nestled in their boxes, humming, unheard, to an ancient frequency.